So, welcome, my dear Rebel Wisdom course podmates. We've been doing this for a number of years, and for me, yeah, it's always been a pleasure. Pretty much every other Tuesday, with a couple of, exceptions, come together and enjoy our friendship. And with that, I can already toss the ball into the court and see who picks it up.
By the way, I think we've been together 5 years,
It's been 5 years.
or just under. It'll be 5 years in September, I think, or October. Yeah.
That's a lot of interesting conversations. A lot of consciousness expanding conversations.
And
Yeah.
and not starting out as like for friendship as a stated goal. We were pursuing similar interests, so there was like a friendship that built from sort of going shoulder to shoulder in an open-hearted way, like learning new practices.
Yeah. Yeah, like discovering and developing together, then led to appreciation and love and friendship and in the way that it is. It's really group friends. And I know Jess, you and Liz are friends separately, but this feels like group friends.
What does that mean, group friends?
Like that the friendship shows up in a group form. We all text individually at times. We've all connected individually at times for different reasons. We've gotten to physically play together if three of us have. So it has some, but it just feels like there's this Zauber. Is that it, Jochen? That shows up when we're together. The four of us are together with a topic, exploring a topic. There's a kinship or a connection that emerges that's could be described as friendship, but it's just like its own special flavor. Because
Oh, sorry. Go.
I was just going to say, because in a way, sometimes I'm more intimate or we're more intimate with each other and more vulnerable and open because of our shared love of learning and exploring and practicing different things that then some of my maybe not close friends, but acquaintances for sure. I mean, yeah. Go ahead, Liz.
Well, that's you kind of said what I was feeling to say, which is I think that a fundamental focal point of this group friendship is curiosity. Like we always come together around curiosity.
Yeah, yeah. Exploration, experimentation, curious, as a way of, yeah, playing out, yeah, curiosity and wonder. Yeah, I have that experience, Liz, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like the it's either if our container is a cook pot, the curiosity is either the flame or the fuel or what's in the pot.
Hmm.
Already feels like a very juicy dish.
Yeah. I
I
wonder
think
if,
what's in the pot is whatever we bring. I think what's in the pot is whatever we bring, and then the curiosity is the fuel.
yes, almost like a shared, there's a shared value there somehow, right? There's a shared wanting to be curious and explore and see what we can learn and how our perspectives can be.
Ooh, yeah. There's a shared value around uh wanting happy to not know, but to explore. And I was just listening to a conversation with Diane Musho Hamilton, and she was talking about conflict and how if we collectively gather around our sameness, and that's all that we ever are interested in is that comfort of our sameness, we become very complacent and stale in our relationship. And so when you start to be curious about the differences, that's when things rev up in a relationship. Like that's when things become more evolutionary, I guess.
Yeah.
And that this feels like an evolutionary space.
Yeah, I would definitely say the friendships in this group are not predicated on agreement. Like I mean, we do share values, but we don't like it doesn't matter if we don't see eye to eye or agree on different things, and that has always been, you know, I don't feel like it's a high conflict group, but I feel like differences are always like welcome in our discussions.
Yeah.
Yes, it's almost like, oh, you feel that way. Tell me more. Oh, that's interesting. I feel this way. Wow. What's that like? You know, what happens when you run into this or that? Like we've been in many conversations like that where, yeah, and there can be some tension, and then we can explore the tension. You know, I mean, it's like this inquiry of, yeah, like that's, I don't know. I'm trying to think about your metaphor because I loved it, but it's like the lab we're in and what we're here to experiment with or on or about allows for so much diversity in thought, perspective, experience. You know, there's been so many times where one of us is like in tears and the other one is pissed and the other one is, you know, feeling nostalgic and the other one is in a meditative state. I mean, literally, we can be.
Sleeping in the middle of the call. The other one's sleeping in the middle of the call.
Yeah,
I love that. You came back because you were very jet lagged. I think, Jochen, you had just come back from a trip. And about two-thirds, three-quarters of the way into the call, you were sleeping. And I remember saying, this is amazing that this space feels that safe.
Oh,
Gonna take a little nap right in the middle of it, not even giving us any, like, I'm gonna take a nap. You're just taking a nap.
and we're all just accepting it and loving on it and continue the conversation.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a memory of droopy eyes, to say the least.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. Something I've shared with my husband is when sometimes I'm so tired because this is later for me than normal, you know, like I'm usually headed to bed right now, or at least to go read. And there is a tiredness in me. And then I come and I be with our group. And afterwards, my husband's just waiting for me to say it. Oh my God, I love these people. That just fed my soul, you know, and he just sees me dragging and then inspired and alive. And it's just, he cracks up every time, you know, he just cracks up. He's like, you know, how much do you love those people? I said, this much.
I remember, I don't remember where I heard this, but like several years ago, many years ago, I heard of someone differentiating, like talking about the things that differentiate friendship from other kinds of relationship. And one of the things, I don't remember everything that they said, but one of the points was that friends track each other's lives, and so that when they meet up, they'll have an interest in like ongoing sort of things and how things are going. And that's one of the things that I think is interesting about how, like, talking about that we're group friends, that we don't talk that much chit chat. Do you know what I mean? Like as much as you would with the work friends or day to day. But over time, because of how we bring things in or how we share, we know like things that are going on in each other's lives and can track them. But also we're tracking our own topics, and like you use the word sober, like, you know what I mean, like, so we have our like inside jokes or vocabulary that we've developed or that sort of thing. And so it's like to me, it's interesting just to notice the way that we do track each other.
Yeah, there is some like inside, what do you call that? Not inside trading, but like there's some insider about it. There is. It's very, yeah, because we shared this incredible experience years ago, and then from that built all these cool things. Yeah, it's almost like another thing I've noticed is we don't gossip. Even when we've heard about things like people in the group we were in or what's happened to them, there's a different, and I don't mean gossip like bad. I just mean like there's this curiosity, back to what you said, Liz, about, oh, how are they doing? What's going on? Oh, I wonder how that impacted them, what happened. But there is this shared, yeah, back to curiosity, a shared care and a shared, we check in with each other and see, I don't know. It's just, it's a whole different atmosphere. And
But there is sometimes there's like that fucking guy, right? Talking about somebody in the world, right?
yeah,
Just
that's
doing
true.
something,
That's true.
saying something. And then someone else might say, I don't think that fucking guy. I like that guy, right? And then we talk that out.
But right, but then we find out what's upsetting, what it triggers in you, what it inspires in you. Like we go on this so that's the thing. I think it is the pot. I think it's the pot we're in. That whole thing where structure shapes behavior, and there's this kind of DNA that came from rebel wisdom and sense making that really shapes that pot. And then it kind of calls for a different kind of relationship with what we're talking about. I don't know. You guys, there's just something that DNA has carried all the way through. And we've had some fun some nights where we're just a little more light and, playful. And then, but that DNA is always there. At least I think that's been my experience for this time. Yeah.
And in terms of what this means for friendship for me, is in many relationships in my life, every once in a while, people come back at me. It's not that they deny my experience, but they try to point out, oh no, you're seeing it wrong. Or like, I wouldn't call it gaslighting because that's such a nasty word, but it's like, it's very slightly trying to point out to the other person, no, like, it is not what you think it is, but it is done in a way that seems to negate the other person's experience. And that is nothing that ever happened, I think, between us, where I really feel it's much more what Rebel Wisdom might have had as one of their foundational ideas. What did they call it? Rule Omega, or like this kind of yes and, right? Where you start from what the other person says. And then, of course, you want to build on that, and you can even build in a different direction, right? You don't have to just, oh, yeah, all straight down the line, but you don't try to drag the other person back and say, no, what you said is just like stupid. That doesn't happen.
No.
And
But
yeah,
we also feel a freedom to say, I'm really triggered by what you just said.
Yeah.
I'm really triggered by your point of view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rule Omega, is Rule Omega the seek first to understand? Is that kind of what is meant by that?
That's a really good question. But I do remember Rule Omega. I just don't remember the particulars of it.
I think it's a generosity when it comes to the kind of detecting signal from noise, and to always start from the assumption there's something valuable in what the other person just said.
Okay.
I do not have to worry that what they said is gonna lead me into like a trap or whatever. Or you could also call it like really good faith dialogue, or like conversation, where you try to suss out, okay, what is it that in what the other person just said that I can work with rather than work against.
Yeah. And that DNA allows me then to come, even if I feel impassioned or inspired or even a little defensive or whatever, but I can come to that and always feel safe in exploring another viewpoint or in just letting my guard down enough to where I can see it from a different perspective. So for me, this is like, did we say evolutionary earlier somewhere in this? But it's evolutionary. And that's one of the things that keeps me inspired or that opens my heart with you all, or that, it's just that calling to keep finding the next truth, the next possibility that beyond my fear, my defense, whatever it is. So there's just that invitation here all the time. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to build like the second piece on top of what you said, just Googling rule omega.
Oh,
It emphasizes active listening and seeking to understand the underlying signal within a potentially noisy or complex message. So this approach aims to foster more generative and flowing dialogue. But I love that you're listening for, you're not totally trying to understand what is the person saying, how does this make sense for them? It's more what's really happening for them. Like what's foundationally energetically happening for them. That's what the Google says rule omega is, in addition to what you said, Jochen. Yeah, so I love that.
yeah, like what's being said and what's in the unsaid too.
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah.
part of that, with that kind of lens on.
Yeah, because there's a truth. If someone's saying something, it matters to them. So there's just a truth in the mattering of it.
Yeah.
Even if what they're saying isn't computing with what I currently believe, it's like don't engage at that level to try and disprove or dispute, or like you said, Jochen, like pull you into like a completely different understanding. It's like let the thing live as it's expressed and then start from there to work with it.
Yeah. Yep. And by the way, many times I'll see the next truth for me or where I was blind or defensive or whatever after our call. And so it opens up during the week even. Or Liz, you bring these great questions, so I'll put them on a post-it on my on my screen. And so there's also this really long half-life to our conversations. Like it keeps opening things up, I've noticed.
And something you just said, for me, Kim translated into the signal is actually not in the answers. The signal is in the question. Because if I can
Mm.
pick out what were the almost the problems that a person came to the call with, or like things that they were wondering about, things that they hadn't figured out yet, I find that almost more useful both for the relationship, because that's something that we can then look at together and really kind of puzzle a little with, but also for myself. And many of the things I think that I brought in the past, and we've done this little kind of case clinic thing where each of us presented some puzzling thing that we've had, and where the other people then just gave some commentary or like some reflections about. And as I kind of try to think back to those things that you have brought as puzzling aspects of your experience, I have learned a lot, even just like from thinking about, oh, that is puzzling. That is genuinely puzzling. And coming to this experience of, yeah, in this life, so much can happen where I don't have an answer, and to just almost be okay with that state.
Mm. Yeah, because I think, I mean, again, my experience is I leave with more questions and more inquiry going on than any answers. But also there's times I leave where, because of the conversation between us, there is a feeling of equanimity or okayness as well. So it's interesting. It's a both. You know, I can leave a little more disturbed in a wonderful way and kind of seeking feedback from the universe and inquiry, or I can leave with just my heart full. And it kind of, and sometimes both.
Yeah, I'm thinking now of, so a teacher I'm working with right now, Sarah McCrum, was talking this week about physics, basic quantum physics of what is observed evolves. It cannot not evolve. If it's observed from with consciousness, with neutrality,
Yes.
it's observed from that place, it will evolve. The thing will evolve, the experience will evolve, the emotion will evolve, and the observer will evolve. And I'm just thinking that this is a place of conscious, neutral observation. That's the space we hold, no matter what anybody brings into that space.
Yeah.
Like, we're not, back to what you said, we're not trying to find an answer, Jochen, right? We're not trying to fix it. We're observing it. We're holding space to have it be observed. And I think that's the ripples of evolution that we feel when we leave these calls.
Yeah, because it's, even if we bring, and we have, over all of us have brought, like, I'm grappling with something, I'm frustrated about something, I'm stuck in a particular perspective. And yeah, the response can be, there's a spectrum. There can be practical offerings, but they're never, but they're always in this, oh, run that up the flagpole. You know, there's not, this is what you should do, right? Or there's, well, oh, interesting. Where do you think that evolved, or what got triggered, or, you know, so that, yeah, there's this beautiful, yeah, that it's kind of an evolutionary space. Yeah. Because of that back to that DNA of the Omega rule, and and just learning so many different practices to build muscles for seeing things differently and not getting stuck in one perspective. I don't know, just I I also feel like this conversation is like re-infusing. It's already infused, but it feels like it's like, isn't there some kind of therapy where you know, I don't know, I mean it like a physical, medical, whatever, but a homeopathic, whatever. But it just feels like, oh wow, this is so beautiful to just go back and have these rememberings and describing, because often we're not describing, we're just being. Yeah. Wow.
I have a question, or maybe it's an observation, so I don't know how it will come out. But when I think about like the friendship in this group, and so we've talked a little bit about that it's evolutionary, that there's a DNA to the container, that it's sort of based on rule omega, that there doesn't seem to be, or I can't think of a time when there has been very much like, I'll just call it like status games within the group, where, because in other friendships sometimes someone's better friends or moving up or down the friendship ladder, but that is not something that I've really felt here. And so I just wondered, like, if you guys notice that or have thoughts about that, like, is status part of friendship, or how do those things cooperate?
Oh, that's such a good question. I, huh. Well, and it's interesting too, because when I found out that, Liz, you joined our group, but very soon after it had started, I know, but it was like, oh, you guys are already friends. How is this going to play out? Never became an issue. Never even, that was it. I had a thought, and then it went away because and
You
even
mean could the fact that Jess and I were already friends create some kind of a status thing in the dynamic of
Well,
Right.
and
Oh my
because
God.
we were actually, it was a year. Didn't we do the course twice? Or how
Oh,
did it
you're
work?
right. We did 2
And
courses. That's right.
yeah, and so the
Right, Claire.
first course paired us, but like Rebel Wisdom's algorithm, whatever, however they sorted that out. Like Kim, Jochen, and me. And was it just the 3 of us? We never had another person that dropped out. It was just the 3 of us. And then in the next round, Liz joined. And yeah, Liz and I have been friends longer, and also we're in a co-friend pod that evolved over time, is not dissimilar how our friendship built. But yeah, so that was a time when there was a chance for that disruption, and yeah, for sure.
like if it had been a problem just in the general friendship and status conversation, if it had become a problem, like what would the problem be that it could become,
I
having
don't,
just already
yeah.
known each other?
Well, I think in another world, in a Kardashian world, oh, you guys have your own private language, or you did your own things and we weren't there. And I don't know, like this FOMO or
Like
whatever else.
that I'm secretly texting Liz. Can you believe Kim just said that?
Yeah, I know. It's like,
Yeah, and you know what? You know what? You guys can secretly text anyone you want, because I have, there's been times where like Jochen and Jess just were the only 2 that were available. So they had this amazing connection. And then we see the text between us. There's been times where Jochen and I were on just together and had an amazing connection. There was time, like we've all had that mix. And then some of us feed in what we learned on the outside because of the conversation and the text chain, and some people don't, and some people are available, some people aren't. It just literally ebbs and flows and has there is. So back to that status, that are you special, are you taking away my specialness? I don't know, whatever. I'm just trying to power, all that. It just, it's like, oh, cool, they got to talk. Oh, I did miss being in the group, when I've missed. It was like, oh, but it was like, because I love you guys and I love the conversation and it makes me a better person. Not for it, just, yeah, it's very interesting, Jess. I don't, huh.
I think there is definitely status at play in friendship groups, but it depends
Yeah.
on, this is going to sound judgmental. I don't mean it to. It depends on the level of maturity of the participants, how big a factor or dynamic status is, how much weight status carries. That's my experience, because I'm thinking of another group where it is at play. I was going to say it's an age thing maybe, but then I'm like, no, it's not, because in that other group there's status stuff, but we're all the same age. Well, they're actually 10 years younger, but it's not, but I don't think it's about the age. I think it's about maturity, might not be quite the right word, level of awareness, maybe level of what feels important and what matters in friendship. If we made it totally neutral, maybe that would be the thing to say. Why are you in the friendship group? What are you wanting from being in the friendship group will determine how much status is a factor in friendship.
Yeah, is it tribal kind of level perspective versus we came in with a very non-tribal intention. Wasn't about survival, it wasn't about being better than, it wasn't about getting more than, it was actually about observe, like
Co-evolution.
what?
Co-evolution.
Yeah, because it was like, oh no, if that comes up, bring it on, let's go explore. Because all of us have said, I'm sure we've all said, I know I've said something tribal and then even said, wow, I really feel protective of that. Or, like, again, this space where we could actually say, wow, I'm feeling kind of prejudiced, like, and I didn't even realize it. Or like, really, we could say my experience, like we could say any tribal thing that's arising us, and it would be held in that curiosity inquiry pot. So it never gets like the traction on it or something, maybe. I don't know. It's very,
My curiosity is almost still with your question, Jessica, because I assume behind the question was maybe still also some reminiscence about an experience or some experiences in other contexts. And as I started thinking about that, where I have experienced something like that, I imagine that for the people involved, myself included at times, it was almost about who, not in the end, but like who in moment by moment is seen as having more influence or something. And it was not so much about a game, but it's really almost like to prove to oneself that I can get other people to listen to me, or like what I, whatever, something like that. But I'm not sure if that's kind of the experience that you might have like that you had in mind when you asked the question.
Well, I was just thinking about friendships in general. So like, and then how ours is, so like it's slightly, my experience of being friends with you guys is different because I don't, like Kim, you were just saying you didn't say these words, but what I said is like if I could say something that in another group of friends might alienate me, like that they might be like, I don't want to be my position in the group is at risk because of what I said. We're here, I think it would just be held in a certain way. So that's like one example of like how it's a different kind of friendship. And then another one is like I have a one friendship that is in bad repair right now. So it's not healthy. And I was going to be seeing the people, and so I and I what I the discomfort in me around going to be seeing them is like I realize it's like I don't know where I stand. And so I was sort of, which is a status question, and what's it going to be like? And so that I came in with the thought, we are friends who have fallen out. And so that I'm like, the we are friends helps me keep my heart open. And the who have fallen out is like an honest appraisal of the situation. But not, it means there's still potential in it, but also keeping that grounded in a kind of reality, and then just see where it goes from there. And so that's how I came in, and then it went how it went. And I don't want to digress in that way, but just, yeah, we haven't had any like real like fallouts or like that sort of thing in the years that we've been meeting.
yeah, there's like a trust here. It just, what you were just sharing, just because I've been there. I had been there where I don't know where I stand, and I'm not clear on the capacity or the desire of the other person. Kind of back to what you were saying, Liz, the capacity or desire of the other person to repair, to work out a problem, to explore what's underneath the reaction. Right. So you guys know my saying, can we get into trouble together and come out better people? That's one of my kind of criteria for friendship, and even for work relationships, is like, I want to hang out with people that are interested and curious and open-hearted about exploring what's underneath, making unconscious conscious, right? And so it's really tough if there's two different desires with two friends. And there's even some friendships where I'm like, I'm there, you just can't go there. And they have become acquaintances or not friends over time because there's no way to repair. There's no way
There's
to
no evolution of the relationship.
know, and no evolution. And if I'm the only one desiring it, I become like, then I don't like myself. It's like, that's another one of my things is, do I like myself more after I've hung out with someone? Do I like who I am when I'm with them? Right? Or my other thing is, what software downloads beyond both of our control? Let's just tell the truth, right? Because I don't know, some people, it's just you can't solve a problem with them, and they feel the same way, and that's okay. But again, this is really interesting, Jochen, this whole conversation, because I go back to our original DNA over and over, and it really shapes the body and the life differently. The DNA just does. Like, and at any moment, any one of us could be like, nope, that's too far for me. Or no, I can't go there. Or you know what I mean? We could, but I don't, yeah. So I just really get what you're saying, Jessica. I've been there. And no harm, no foul on them even, or on me. There's just like, is it showing up in the space or not?
Well, and if we're talking, because it feels like the conversation is now expanding beyond this friendship to
Yeah.
a bigger conversation about friendship. And it's interesting because I have some friendship situations where I actually have to ask, am I going to broach this? Am I going to bring this up? And then in order to answer that question, I have to like do some sense making around how available is this person? How important is this friendship? Is this a place I want to grow greater intimacy and evolve? And if it is, are they going to be open to it? What's their capacity to have that kind of a conversation? And how uncomfortable am I? How scary is it for me? Like, how uncomfortable am I to actually be vulnerable enough to broach it? So I'm just thinking about, like, with our different friendships, right? We're doing that kind of calculation all the time.
Yeah. Like, do I experiment? Do I take a chance? Do I reveal my soft underbelly or not?
Yes. I just want to share a story that I recently heard that was just like mind blown to me. And it was like at a conference, like a love at first sight, eyes locked across the crowded room, friendship. So people met, and then at the break, chatting, and then it's basically by then it comes like we're best friends now. And this is like adults that had like lots of existing friendships, but they are like total friend soulmates, not a romantic love, but just like a fully blossoming friendship because someone took a chance. They just recognized something in the person and then acted on it. And I like when I heard this story, I was so moved, and it just seems so wondrous and rare. But I'm like, does it have to be rare? Like, it's like, how willing are we to like go for it?
Yeah, like risk being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Or even just risk being awkward, like to say like want to be friends. Do you know what I mean? It's like past grade school, that's kind of not a question, and so it has to come in another way. But I think who was it? I think Jane Fonda was just talking about how she's like super deliberate in her friendships, and when she meets someone and finds them, she's like, let's be friends. Like putting the time into it. And yeah, so I don't know.
This is also making me think of, so two of my best friends who are not best friends with each other, but we've all known each other for 35 years. And they were both together at mutual friend's funeral. So one of them doesn't live here anymore. They hardly ever see each other. Like they might go 4 years without seeing each other, these two. But they were together at a funeral. And first I talked to the one who doesn't live here anymore. She came over and she said, I saw at Ryan's funeral, but it was weird. Like I kept trying to go in and say hi and talk to her, and it was like she was like deeking me and kind of feeling very evasive, and it was just kind of strange. And I said, "Huh, that's interesting. Um, don't know what to make of that, right?" And then a few days later, I'm riding with the other friend, and I said, "Hey, so and so was saying she got this kind of vibe from you at the thing that you were maybe avoiding her a little bit." And she said, "I was." And then we just rode on. We rode on. And then at the end of the ride, she said, "Okay, I'm going to tell you what was going on for me is, do you remember 25 years ago when I applied for a job with this bicycle tour company, whom first friend was very high up in, and didn't get, I got the notice that I did not get hired." And it was like her whole, I love biking, I love people, I love sports, I love, it's a perfect job for me, right? And all she got was, "Nope." And she said, "I really wanted a call from my friend to tell me why, to tell me what happened, because it hurt so bad to not get it. It was such a blow to my ego. And then to not have her reach out was double insult to injury, right? And it's been in the space all of these years, all of these many years. And the person for whom this happened, she's not someone who likes to have the deep, let's go in, let's explore, let's have the heart to heart, let's get to the bottom of this. She doesn't, but she said, I need to, I think I need to resolve this. I think I need to tell her, will you help me write something?" I said, "Absolutely." And so we wrote something that felt very like her, but said the thing, right? "I'm not mad at you. It's not about you. It's my thing, but it's in between us. And I want to name it and I want to say it." So that happened about 3 weeks ago. And then she didn't send it. She's going to send it, but she didn't send it. And then she wrote me yesterday and said, "I sent it. Fingers crossed." I said, "It doesn't matter what happens next. It does not matter, because you're evolving through that." We take care of our own evolution by being evolutionary, right? And of course it matters. It's gonna matter. I trust this other person to respond gracefully to this, but who knows? We'll see what happens. But I guess I'm just saying it was such a thing to witness someone who doesn't like to go to those places and doesn't like to be that vulnerable and doesn't, but she's 64 and maybe that's part of it, right? She's just like, "I don't want to carry this anymore. I really like this person. I don't want to feel this every time I see them and have it in between us." And so she took responsibility for it. And we'll see where it goes next. But it's that kind of a,
It reminds me of just what you said, Kim. Like, do I like how I am like when I'm with this person, and can we come through, can we get into trouble together and come out the other side? Like all of those sorts of questions. And then even the thing that you pointed to, like I think you said, is there another software downloading or something? He's like, sometimes there's just chemistry that gets engaged. It's like where it, things spark or something that wouldn't if we weren't together. And so there's like other things at play too.
Yeah, look, Liz, that's what showed up in between. What is okay, now I'm going to be statusy. John Vervaeke has this transjective, not subjective or objective. It's what shows up between us. But look what showed up between you and your friend, Liz. That's just such a beautiful example, right back to what Jess was saying, that what I was saying, that what showed up between you was inquiry, reflection, vulnerability, safety, partnership, support, no judgment, neutral, observation, like so many of the things we've been talking about that seem to show up around, fulfilling friendships. And so that's really cool that was the DNA that showed up between you and the person who didn't get the job years ago, right? Like,
well, and I'm also thinking of how does status play in here, because I think she knew I was not going to make either of them right or wrong.
yeah,
Yeah, that's a lack of judgment.
Yeah.
There's
And
safety in that. There's safety in that. Well, there's safety in that if you're ready. If you're still way in tribal, there's not safety in it because you just want someone to agree with you so you feel safe.
yeah.
Yeah.
So there's different levels in that evolvement, right? Um, wow, that just says a lot about that friendship. That's really cool. And you
Yeah.
know,
Well, and also that like I'm just observing like how we just seem to have a strong societal preference that people work their things out directly. It's like just talk to each other. We think, oh, talk to each other. That's the simplest thing, but it's not always the simplest. Like in this case, it had to go through a chain where the first friend said, hey, I noticed that she was avoiding me, Liz. And then Liz says, hey, were you avoiding her? Yes. And then so like just like there's a neutralizing agent because the other things are a little bit too volatile in your current state. And so like
That
that, yeah.
that for me comes back to an experience of pure curiosity rather than an agenda. Because if I imagine, Liz, that the friend who had that experience would have gone to her friend and said like, hey, are you avoiding me? It's almost impossible to phrase that as a pure curiosity question because it's always the implication you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Whereas like you asking that about the other, like, as the neutral go-between, you can really ask,
Right.
hey, were you avoiding this person? And that's a curiosity question because like I don't have a horse in the race here either way.
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the key ingredient to that because that without that ingredient can devolve into gossip, tribal, safety, protection, you know. Oh my God. So that was a key to me, or at least that's what I'm observing was a key element. Um, by the way, Tim Ferriss, I think it was Tim Ferriss on his 5 takeaways on Friday or whatever he does. He had a link to this, I think it's on Substack, and maybe I can find it and share it with you guys. It's just a few paragraphs, and it's a guy talking about the smallest, like when we can't report our experience, it just undermines a relationship. And so he actually even gives examples of how you can go in and share, like, are we not like, are we disconnected, but just saying, hey, I'm feeling uncomfortable a little. I'm wondering if you are. Like he says it in this really inviting, safe way. And it doesn't mean the other person will always respond, but they're not going to respond at all if you don't do something, right? And she did do something. She came and talked to you, you know, but it's a really cool little article, very practical. I don't even think he's a psychologist or anything. He's just a human being saying, hey, I've discovered this thing about naming my experience rather than judging the other and just checking out if that's what's in their reality as well. So anyway, it just made me think of that. Um, and that's in a way what your friend is doing by writing the letter back, right?
Yeah.
She's saying, hey, this is showing up in my experience. I need to let you know.
Yeah. I mean, the letter was beautiful because it wasn't trying to fix or resolve anything. It was, I don't want to carry this anymore. And the way to not carry it is I got to tell you, I've been carrying it. It's
Yeah.
not about you, it's about me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just
But
business.
I was also just thinking of like back to the status, friendship status, toxic status, how that could look in a situation like this is I could think I get status if I keep them at odds with each other.
Ooh, good one. Yeah.
They need you and you're both of their favorite.
Yeah.
They're
Over
both
the-
fucked up and I'm not. Right. Like that could just devolve that way. Wow. Good
How
call.
often does that happen in friendships, right? Where someone wants, if those guys are in conflict, I'm the go-to person. So I just went way up in status in this dynamic. Like that. I mean, I don't know how often it happens with grown
It happens a lot in
adults.
threes. It happens in families.
Ooh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that neutral, knowing you're not what, like Jochen, you said, like knowing the way who Liz is there's, I don't have a horse from the game, then allows for a different context for the conversation versus the devolvement, the way you said it could have gone in a different, with a different context.
Yeah.
And at least if I imagine that 25 years ago, someone didn't even call me to tell me why I didn't get a job, I already have this experience. This person is not gonna care about how I feel very much anyway, so why would I even tell that person how I feel? Because
Right.
they have already kind of shown they don't care, right? So it's almost like a catch-22 where I just cannot by myself get out of it anymore if I believe that.
Mhm.
If I start
Oh.
believing, the other person doesn't care about how I feel, then why even reveal it?
This is so good. This is so good because another teaching from Sarah is we all are making our meeting, and you have to live, you're responsible for the consequences of your stories. So
Oh,
friend 2 has been responsible for over 20 years for the consequence of her story. This person did not care about me enough to tell me. And she had to live with the consequence of that story for all these years. And you can tell, like the other person said, it feels like she's avoiding me. Why is she avoiding me? She's oblivious, right? She isn't aware that she did something that felt hurtful to that other person.
Liz, I think I have a post-it for the week from you. Where am I carrying a story or holding on to a story? I don't know. Help me formulate this, okay? But something like, and I'm not getting the consequences. Like, where am I? What's the right question here? Like,
Well, I don't know, but it feels like you're looking for where am I suffering consequences for a story that I'm carrying?
that I won't let go of, or that I have committed to, right? Consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But I'm just in this, I want to, this is just, it just feels so inviting to, because that's just such a moving story.
Well, and it also, it's like sets up a good detective situation, because as soon as something's upsetting, you're like, you can be like, track it back to what story is this like
Oh,
related to, right? Like, I guess that's what the work is, but it's just like,
that's
like,
so right on. Oh my God. Right. Like where, like, okay, I'm going to be on the lookout for where I get, major triggered or little. And okay, what's backtrack the story. And
Yeah,
then,
accept
what
the
are the
consequences.
what are the consequences of this story? Because we're always telling ourselves a story. Always. It's always a story. Always. Right? So you notice the story and then you say, what consequences are the consequences of the story? Because I am responsible for the consequences of the story I tell.
yes, that's so good.
Good or bad? Good or bad. Right? You're also responsible for the good consequences of good interpretations of your
And
experience.
and what at least I'm also thinking, Liz, is I imagine at least the only way in which I could ever get to the point of even having the ability to change a story that I carry is by first telling it.
Mm.
Because if I'm only ever kind of thinking it,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have even the awareness that I could change it, because it is just the truth. It is just like, that's the truth, right? There is no a
Right.
moment by which, but in telling it, in that moment, I think it becomes this thing that the other person then holds, and because they hold it and I can see it in their hands, that is when I'm like, oh,
Well,
it is just the story. It is not the truth, because I've spoken it and I've said it and I've put it out there. And then I can be like, oh, by the way, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it isn't so.
Well, depends how the other person receives it in part, right?
Yeah, of course.
May say, yeah, fucking asshole,
Yeah.
like they might, right, confirm the validity of your story as the truth, right? And then it depends, is that what you're looking for? Because sometimes that's what we're looking for. Or are you actually looking for someone to bust? Like I find with myself, if I get triggered by somebody in a story, I will talk to a friend, rant, say my thing, but I'm very clear because I want you to show me the holes in my story. And I will pick the friend who I think will do that.
Yeah, you
Walls
sound
or
like you.
build it
Go
up.
ahead. Go ahead,
Oh,
Jess.
no, but I wanted to slow it down a little bit because I agree of 1000% with what you're saying. And I do also think even if the person agrees and is building on it, there's something to getting it out of your head and into a shared space that does make it more malleable. And so it's like, whatever we're going to do with it, either poke holes in it or blow it into the other big thing. It's like a step of the conversion process is getting it from out of the head into the world. And then whatever happens next will happen. But then, it can go in many ways.
Sometimes I've been at lunch with a friend who I adore, and I'll say a story, being the hero of my own story, wanting validation, whatever. And I can actually get it by saying it out loud. And even though that person will go, oh, you're great. And no, no, no. And then I'm like, well, no, actually, wow. Like, so to your point, Jess, even if you can just get it out, and even if somebody goes into total agreement with you, sometimes that is the thing that opens it up for me. Like,
yes. I have experience of that too. Yeah. Then you suddenly evolve.
Yeah.
And access some wiser part of yourself that can see it differently than you were seeing it. Even if they say, yeah, that sucks. That's really unfair. That's not cool. That's not, even just letting someone witness and hold that gives you more room to find something else in yourself.
Well, it's like you said that
tells me something's off. Go ahead, Jess. Yeah.
But also, like you said, that teaching from Sarah McCrum that what is observed evolves. And so the speaking, then hearing is a form of observation. And so the evolution's happening even if the story's staying intact.
So and you may not be neutral and your listener might not be neutral, but the space is neutral.
Yeah. And if you've got your awareness, but see, that's back to we are for people, and there's many, but that want that awareness. There is a kind of a mission about it. There's a fulfillment in it. And by the way, and I know you've got to go soon, Liz, but I just want to say that's another thread of the DNA that I think is similar to what we talked about in this group, but distinct in that how we can witness each other. Something about that. I don't have my hands on it, but there's just something about how we are witnesses for each other that just in that changes it. So maybe it's the same thing we said before, but it just felt very palpable. Anyway, now I'm on this week.
I do have to go, but this has been super fun. And Jochen, I hope it feels helpful for your wonderful venture and undertaking that you're engaged in right now.
Like one thing that came up for me, Liz, just at the end to kind of like give that as a gift back, or as a thank you back. It really kind of started the question now for me: what is almost the strongest violation that I can experience with a friend? And I assume if the friend is bearing witness to something, but then later almost like betrays that in some way, where I feel they actually helped me see something, and then they at some point twist it around and was like, who is this person? Where I really have to wonder, what happened here? We had this conversation and he really or she really helped me see something, and I got to this point, and then they're just like later turning around to someone else and be like, yeah, that person is an idiot or whatever. It's like, I
think that's the complexity of status moving in the space.
Sure.
Right. I'm going to get status from you by being your good friend and holding space. And I'm going to get status over here by knocking you off the pedestal. Right. Like people who are interested in status games they can go all kinds of different ways
Yeah,
with
or
it.
weaponize the thing that so they
Yeah.
help you see something and then they turn it against you. Like
Yeah.
that. Like
So
Yeah.
let's
One down because you didn't see it versus we both get to rise up. Right.
let's not act like the people from the intellectual dark web. Each goes on different podcasts and we shit on each other and then it all falls apart. Let's not do that.
Okay.
No.
Deal.
Oh,
Okay.
Okay.
Love you guys.
love you guys so
Bye,
much.
Liz.
Soon.